Hey everyone, and welcome back to 5 Minute Fridays with Red Level. Today we are going to talk about a topic that is really near and dear to my heart. It's something that you can use to utilize and protect your business from probably, I would say, one of the most common forms of attack. So what is that? That's spoofing and phishing. So let's dive into that. I think we've heard the term spoofing, we've heard the term phishing before. But let's break it down into layman's terms. So really, a phishing attack is something where an email comes into an organization and it is relying on existing trust relationships. And what I mean by that is it is an email that is trying to impersonate a known vendor, commonly Microsoft, maybe a landing page you're familiar with. So they go to great extent of social engineering to try and get you to input data, which is the phishing part. So they're phishing data out of you. And in many cases, the higher level engineered attacks are utilizing what we would call spoofing, which is impersonating the sender. So it could come from what you perceive to be as your direct boss asking you questions. And in many times they monitor social networks and other platforms so that they have a general idea of what they're talking about to make themselves, again, just another layer of convincing. So what can we do to protect ourselves? Well, there's a lot of things. A lot of it comes from user training, awareness, but really there's a great tool and it's free, which makes it even better to set up and configure, and that is called Dcam. And so with DKIM, which means Domain Keys Identified Mail, you can see why we use the acronym, essentially lets the organization, so if we were to set up DKIM, which we do have active for our organization, we take ownership over saying, yep, redlevelgroup.com, that's ours, that's our email. And so we set up records within our own domain name and DNS hosting, as well as our mail provider, Office 365, which basically says, again, yep, we own this. This is ours. If somebody tries to impersonate it, it will become more difficult because it adds custom text code into the HTML header that all emails have. And so that, again, is another layer of authentication. Now, it suffers from the same limitations in many ways that SPF records, which is sort of the go-to in the industry, do, in that, if it checks up on one-to-one balance, okay, yep, you seem to be who you say you are. With DKIM, it's doing a similar functionality with a couple extra lines of additional protection in that HTML header that are customized. Now, where DMARC, which is, again, another acronym, I understand, domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance. So that's a big one, but it's a lot of words to basically say, yep, we check all three, and we make sure that all three make sense. And what I mean by all three is DMARC's functionality checks the SPF record, the DKIM record, as well as the existing mail domain. And so what it's doing is it's making sure that there's no impersonation. And it is a huge stopgap measure that you can do to prevent spoofing within your environment, because essentially the chances of something coming through into your domain that is spoofed are pretty limited, because it would have to be a pretty high level attack. And honestly, at that point, they may leverage just brute force access of accounts or having credentials into a VIP account. And so honestly, I recommend starting with DKIM for anyone. There's a lot of great guides out on the internet, and it is basically as simple as setting up an SPF record. So if you're an Exchange administrator, it should be, kind of in that bread and butter toolkit for you. And then moving on to learning more about DMARC and how it can be beneficial for your organization. Thanks again for joining us for 5 Minute Fridays here at Red Level. I'd love if you were to subscribe and follow us out on Twitter, which is at Red Level IT. Have a good one and see you again shortly.